Welcome to the With You Rugby Podcast, designed to give you an in-depth look at the United States Rugby Foundation, including our grant programs and recipients, fundraisers, events, and much more. Now let's get started. Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Vizard, President of the United States Rugby Foundation, and I want to welcome you to another edition of our With You Podcast as we get closer to our 2021 US Rugby Hall of Fame induction ceremony, sponsored by Penn Mutual. We thought it'd be a good idea to get to know this year's inductees and our special award recipients just a little bit better. And today, very pleased to welcome in Ed Burlingham, my first captain with the Eagles, a 2015 Hall of Fame inductee, and the 2021 Craig Sweeney Award recipient. Welcome, Eddie. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Piz. It's good to be here.
Hey, Eddie, let's go all the way back to think a long time ago, your childhood. What sports did you play? Where'd you grow up? All those kind of things when you were growing up.
All right. Well, you're starting with a tough one. It's a few years ago, but I grew up on the East Coast. I was born in Bronxville, New York, and so I we moved out to California about when I was in 5th or 6th grade. So back in the East Coast, I just played all the normal sports, baseball and basketball quite a bit, just in front of our house and that type of thing. No soccer in those days. Nobody really played soccer or knew about it. Certainly no rugby. So it was just, we had 2 brothers and a sister, but so it was a real active household. All the sports that were out there, I jumped in. So. Well, your basketball prowess took you to UC Irvine, right? You played for the Anteaters there. Tell us about your time at UC Irvine. Yeah, that's right. Zot, the Anteaters. That was a great experience. It was a perfect school for me. I had a chance to go a few other places and from my high school basketball, but Irvine was pretty new at that time, and it was a level of basketball that I played all 4 years and pretty much every game, and so it was a perfect blend for me of we always went on a trip at the beginning of the year, so I got to play the Florida States and Seton Hall and the Army and Nebraska. We traveled around. Those small schools do that, and the big boys make some money off you and hope to really trash you in the game. So, but we surprised some people during that time, and it was a really great experience. Just the right fit for me, and that was my basketball career. It says going from basketball to rugby. It probably tells you about my finesse level when I was playing basketball. So, but it was a great experience, and still got a lot of fond memories of those Irvine days.
Well, how did you get involved with rugby? Was that at UC Irvine, or where was it?
Yeah, it's kind of a strange story. Like I said, it kind of tells you about how I played the game of basketball. I was always the defensive specialist that tried to maul their best player and not foul out before the end of the game. But and I'd score a few baskets in between, but that's not what they were looking for it. So it was what happened is there was a couple English guys that were engineers that were based in Orange County. A guy named Sid Batt. You remember Sid? He became a manager for the Grizzlies, and a guy named John Essex. And they would follow our team around. We'd play in Nebraska, and these 2 guys, they just loved sports, and basketball was a thing if they were in the Irvine area. So they all of a sudden they'd be there, and they approached, I got to know them a little bit during the 4 years. And then they, like I said, they approached me up to the end of the basketball. I mean, the only letter I got to continue my sports career was from the Dallas Cowboys. They were looking for kind of crossover athletes that could maybe play some football. So, I could have gone maybe overseas and played some more basketball, but they said, we've got this local team, a rugby team, which was Irvine Coast at that time, and said, hey, why don't you come out? And like a lot of guys, I said, yeah, I don't have anything going this weekend, and I'll give it a try. And, once you get your teeth into a rugby game, it was just a great experience, and the guys were great. We went out and had a few beers and got to know everybody. And so I just fell in love with it from the first guy. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I just ran around in circles trying to tackle somebody. And but it was just a great atmosphere and experience. So that's it. I fell in love with those guys and introduced me to it.
Well, you climbed the ladder. You got SoCal recognition, Pacific Coast recognition. You made your Eagles debut in 1980 against the All Blacks in San Diego. I mean, that must have been quite an experience, debuting for one thing and then debuting against the All Blacks. Tell us a little bit about what you remember from that night.
Yeah, nice, easy way to start your international career. Start off with the All Blacks, especially. I mean, I was really pretty naive at the game. I had some athletic skills, and I hadn't really played that much rugby. But I went down because I lived in the area, Ray Cornville, and they asked me to come down. I think I was just going to be a tackling bag or something for the training for the other Eagles. But I was always in really good shape, and I could run, and I guess I was good enough at the game. We had a trial game, and so it was a shock of, I think for a lot of people, I got picked to play in the game. So it was unbelievable. But it's one of those games, I'm sure you had it too, Viz, where it's all a blur. And everything was happening. You can imagine with the All Blacks, I was used to playing at about 10 miles per hour, and this thing was going about 200 miles per hour. So I was doing the best I could, and we hung in there, and the score doesn't reflect it exactly, but it was an unbelievable experience for me, and just made me fall in love with the game even more than that.
What was a Haka like back then? We know what it's like now. What was it like back then?
Oh, it's so different now. It's such a brand, people come to the game just to see the Haka. In those days, I know we were just talking about that with some of my old rugby buddies. It was just, they would sort of assemble it. Nobody really, they didn't practice it. It wasn't precise. And you watch them now and the intent, they still took it seriously like they always have, but it was kind of a hodgepodge, and nobody really made a big, we kind of stood there like, I'm thinking, what the hell's going on? So they've turned it into a big part of their brand now. So it's rehearsed. But I've always given the, New Zealand teams credit. It's a very serious thing even back then. And it's not a giggle time at all. They take it very seriously, and it's a challenge for the game. So even in those days, but it's different now for sure.
You continued to play for the Eagles, and you were the captain of the first ever U.S. team at the first ever Rugby World Cup. That must have been quite a thrill, being the captain of the first ever World Cup team. But what are your memories from that tournament and from being the captain of the team for that?
Yeah. Well, you've had this experience too, Brian. It's like, getting named to play against the All Blacks on that down in San Diego was, the thrill of my life. And then, in 83, I got named for the first time on the tour to Australia to be the captain of the Eagles. And one of the biggest honors of my life. And that experience, captaining the Eagles has been, I still have so many cherished memories, and still great friends with some of the guys that I was able to lead during those tours and so on. And the 87 World Cup, it really was a special group of guys. I'll tell you, and you had a little bit of this experience, but it's difficult in the United States, in 83 especially, 4 territories, and the Pacific Coast was always the dominant territory. But you had, as a captain, you were really responsible to pull that group together for the World Cup in 87 or for a tour in 83, the East Coast, the Midwest, and so on. And, there was always feelings, and you'd bashed heads with these guys for years, and you had to really pull them in and kind of get everybody on the same page. And I really enjoyed it. I took it as a challenge and got to, just made so many great friends. But some of the times were tough because you had to give people, messages that they didn't want. You had to tell them, that it wasn't working, what they were doing, or their attitude, or how they were playing. And that's what I love about rugby. The captain is so involved in that, and with the coaches and in selection and so on. And it's a big responsibility. So that team though just gelled together, and so many of those guys are still great friends of mine. And I think a first ever experience. And we actually played pretty damn good rugby. We beat Japan, and we were more than competitive against Australia and England. The scrummaging was a challenge, but some brave guys, and we really hung in there. So that was a pretty special group that just, for whatever reason, some groups knit together better than others, and that one did.
Yeah, we were 1-0 in World Cup play at one point, right? Beating Japan.
That's right. I didn't realize to this day, we haven't won that many games the World Cup. I thought, there's going to be a bunch of these, and so it's a great memory for us to hold on to.
Yeah, and I remember that team. It's still probably my favorite group of guys. I mean, like you said, just we really, played well together. We had a good time off the field as well. Tours can get a little tough. It's a long time together, and I know there's a couple of snaps here and there, but overall, when you got a guy like Kevin Higgins trying to keep everybody loose, I mean, you can't go wrong. But a lot of veteran players on that team, and I was even a younger guy, but I was 26 or 7 at the time.
Yeah,
I'd still be an old man, but back then, I was one of the younger guys, and we all looked up to you and Blaine and a bunch of the other veterans on that squad. What a great team it was.
yeah. There's a quick funny story in that. I don't know if you remember the banquet that they kicked off with all the teams to the World Cup, and it turned out, and I kind of knew this, but I didn't want to admit it, I was the oldest player at the World Cup. They gave a trophy and maybe a bottle of scotch or something, and it was to the Canadian guy, the winger, the Canadian guy, because I had sort of fudged on my birthday a little bit because I didn't want the selectors to think I was too ancient. So I remember, I'm blanking on his name right now, but you probably remember. But he went up there and got this trophy. They made a big deal. I sat at the table there, and damn it, I should have
got some scotch out of it.
I should have been honest. That guy's got a nice bottle of scotch and a trophy to put on his mantle, and I'm sitting here as the oldest guy, and I've got nothing. So
I didn't know these podcasts were like clearing your conscience, but I'm glad we could help you out there, Eddie.
Yeah, I hope you're not going to send this to anybody, are you? So,
No.
Just how it was in those days, the age, and I didn't want them. I just wanted to kind of judge on how well I played on the field. So, but that was it. We had a group of veterans, older guys like myself that had played a bit, and then groups, of you and Higgy. We had enough comedians. We had enough guys that were social and guys that were. It was just a great mix of guys, and it really worked out. You're right.
Yeah, 2 of those guys unfortunately have left us too soon. Rick Bailey and Neil Brendel, both props on that '87 World Cup team, both Craig Sweeney Award recipients in the past. So again, that's a big loss for us. I know a lot of us went up to Berkeley for Memorial a week or so ago, and that was a great tribute to a really good man with Rick.
Yeah, you're so right. I mean, what a tragic thing. We lost 2 guys within a month or so of each other, and I had just spent, this is a good example. I just had gone fishing up in Montana with Rick, and I talked to Neil a bunch on the phone before the Japan World Cup because he got me some tickets for there. And it's funny, but I'd gotten to know those guys better after our playing days. You're so wrapped up in the rugby and preparing for games and, job responsibilities as a captain and so on. And I just sitting together along a river or, fishing or just talking on the phone. And I spent time with Neil at some of these games that we've been to recently. Pretty special guys. What's neat about it, they came athletic backgrounds, wrestling and football. These guys were outstanding athletes that really were collegiate athletes that, earned a lot of honors. So they were tough. Both those guys propped in the game against England, and we were under incredible pressure, as you know, and they wouldn't take a step backwards. Just every scrum just put out the maximum effort, and they would not give in, even though we were behind on skill levels. We're playing against guys that were, their whole lives they played this, and just really tough men, great rugby men. I miss them. I really do.
Yeah. Now, how about the rugby today as opposed to when we played? Are you glad you played in the era we did, or would you rather have you had a few years in this modern game?
Oh, well, I feel so lucky to have played. I don't know if my family feels that way because it costs a lot of money, and now today's guys are making a bit of a salary and supporting themselves playing the game. But for me, that's not a trade-off that I want, because I feel like that there's just a different atmosphere. Even for my club, the loyalty was a huge part of it, and I played for Irvine Coast, which then became Back Bay, and I never thought of leaving to go to Ombak or Santa Monica, just because the loyalty and the commitment. It was kind of that amateur attitude that you stick together, and it's just a very different feeling now, and even the coaching as involved as coaches are. For me, it just was the perfect fit. No coaches on the field. You had to figure it out as a captain or as a team. You had to change the game plan. You had to prepare the team. I played for some great coaches, but the game was different. It just and I feel like a really lucky guy that I played during that amateur era when it wasn't like other sports. We're always trying to make rugby, like other sports, and I get it, but I love those other aspects of it, the amateur game of it, and you couldn't make any money off of it.
And with your confession today that you're the oldest guy at the World Cup, I'm assuming that was your last test match? Did you hang him up after that?
I thought it was a good idea to step out before they tossed me out. Yeah, that was probably a pretty good decision. I think they went to Wales. There was a tour after that, and I'd run. I was ready to be put out to pasture. I was pretty beat up. I've had hip replacements and knee replacements, and that part of it just physically, and also my family. My wife they'd sacrificed so much. I had 2 young daughters that were just getting going in sports and school and stuff. So it was. I miss it to this day. That competitiveness and on the field and stuff. But it was the right time, so it was a good one to go out on for sure.
Did you take a break before you got back involved with rugby, or did you immediately stay involved as a coach or administrator, or what did you do right after the World Cup?
I told my wife I was going to take a break, but I got dragged back in real quick in the coaching. I don't remember the exact date, but I started coaching the Southern California team and the Pacific Coast team, and then Jim Perkins asked me to be an assistant coach with the 91, going to the 91 World Cup, and some tours leading up to that. I took a younger group to Ireland to play, and so I got back involved with the coaching. It just gets into your system too much to completely step away. So, but I wasn't gone on long tours and that type of thing.
How'd you enjoy your coaching with the Eagles?
I loved it. I really did. I had coached as a high school coach in basketball at Laguna Beach High School before I got in the business I'm in currently. But so I really did. It's a challenge, and knowing, and rugby was different too, knowing how much let the players be involved. It was a player-based game then, and so I like that part of it. So. But I think I'm one of the few guys that likes the, selection committee I like working in committees and trying to figure it out. And with Jim and Bing Dawson and some of the other coaches we had involved, working with George Betzler and so on, I enjoyed the whole scene and the build up to the games, as you know, test matches. When I was coaching the World Cup, there's nothing like a build up to a rugby game, international test, the intensity and the emotion. And the team meetings, and oh man, I gobble it up, and so it was a way for me to stay involved and not get beat up on the field.
Well, another way you stayed involved with the game is you signed on with the US Rugby Foundation a while back. How did you get involved with the foundation, and what are some of your duties as a director of the foundation?
Yeah, I guess I was asked. They're probably looking for. Even though I was the oldest guy at the World Cup, I was maybe a little bit younger than some of the guys in the foundation. I think the foundation was looking for some new blood, and just to the foundation has done such wonderful things with youth rugby, and maybe give it a little different focus. And the Hall of Fame is a real passion of mine to keep that as unique as it is. It's I feel so honored to be in it, and I want that to be special as we all kind of move on. And so I saw some areas that I could work in, and from the coaching of the World Cup and playing, I just have such a passion for the Eagles, and I want the Eagles to be more competitive. Every game, I live and die with it. I want them to do better. I want them to win games. I want them to be more competitive. So I said maybe the foundation, I had some ideas about that. How can we help support players that'll make a difference at the international level? And I want to go to the World Cup in France and see us win a game or two and start and keep moving in the right direction. So I just saw some things in the foundation, and hopefully the foundation saw some things, and me and others. We brought on more governors and directors and so on, that I think it put some energy into it. And not that the foundation hasn't done unbelievable work, but I think I hope to take it, to do that, and yet take it in a little different direction, supporting the national teams, and also I'm doing a heck of a lot of work with the Hall of Fame, trying to keep that as unique and special as it is.
Now, you're here joining us today because you're the 2021 Craig Sweeney Award recipient. And for those who don't know, the Sweeney Award goes to a past capped U.S. player who gives back to the game. And you definitely qualify there, Eddie. But, Craig played in Southern California. Did you have a chance to play with him, or was that after your time or before your time, I should say?
Way before my time. No, I was so lucky because Craig lived down. He played for Santa Monica and went to Stanford and so on. But he lived in our area in Newport Beach. And so I got to know him a little bit. We actually worked out a few times together. And then I was asked when I talk about naive, that's another one. I was thrown into the hot water when I got picked to play New Zealand universities. And I hadn't really played that many rugby games at all. The All Blacks were tough enough, but this was another really talented New Zealand team. And we played at UCLA, and Craig was on the team. And I met him, and I mean, he's just an incredible man, really. The leadership, the calmness, and just a really bright, neat guy. And so he said to me, "Boy, Ed, excited to have you on the team." And he said, "Let me just give you one tip before the game." And I'm all eager, standing there ready to go out and play at New Zealand. He said, "Hey, Ed, do not lay around the ball too long. Just if you make a tackle or do something, get up and out of there fast." And I'm saying, "Yeah, okay, I got it, Craig." But I didn't really get it because I hadn't played in that kind of a game where the rucking and the All Blacks were. I mean, the rucking was unbelievable. Well, about halftime, I had about 150 puncture wounds in my back and from their cleats. I remember saying to Craig after the game, I said, "Craig, I should have listened to you a little bit more. I'm in the shower and I'm hurting," because they were so good at it, and the game was so intense and fast, and so that was another fantastic experience. And getting to play with Craig and some of those other guys from those early Southern California days and stuff, there's some talented players. So I was lucky. But yeah, I did know Craig, and that's what makes this award even more special because I knew what kind of a guy he was.
Yeah, what type of player was he? Was he more the like the Ian Jones all around the field kind of guy, or the Brody Retallick, just a hard-nosed guy who can really do some damage at ruck time?
Yeah. Well, the game's different too, Viz, as you know. Yeah. So the locks and props and stuff weren't expected. We're just supposed to do the scrummaging. He was a good line-out player because he was a big guy. He was kind of the scrummaging was probably, he was a strong football player kind of a guy. So he wasn't, he was a great athlete, but he wasn't the kind that was running around doing all the work around the field. But like I said, locks and props didn't do as much of that, and the game was different. So he just was an all-around. I think he was a solid player that would win line-out ball and solidify the scrum. But I think his real talent was his leadership skills and the way he played. A very quiet, unassuming guy, but man, you didn't want to cross him. He had a good feel for the game, and he just came across as this outstanding. He was an outstanding leader. So I think that was what was really unique about him.
Ed, one final question. What does it mean to win the Sweeney Award?
Yeah, it's emotional. I was shocked when Jeff Lombard called me, and I've seen these other guys, and Neil and Rick and Craig, and there's the list of guys that have won it is quite a list of US Rugby guys. So, to be added onto that, it's pretty special. You can see it's emotional. I feel so honored that I accept it with honor, but I was very surprised and humbled by it. So, you kind of just, like I said, I do the work with rugby just because I love it so much, but it's not. I never thought that anybody kind of looked at it and said, "Hey, thanks." It's a little bit of appreciation for the time you spent, but I would have done it anyway. So no, it's a pretty special honor. I'm in a unique group, and that's cool.
Well, we're looking forward to October 29th when we were able to present it in person, the Craig Sweeney Award to you, Eddie. And thank you so much for your time today, and congratulations, and thank you for giving back to the game all these years.
I appreciate it, Viz. Thanks for all you do too. So we'll see you in Vegas.
We sure will.
All right.
Well, folks, that's going to do it for another edition of our With You podcast. Please stick around for more of these as we get closer to our 2021 US Rugby Hall of Fame induction ceremony sponsored by Penn Mutual. We are going to have a live event at the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas on Friday, October 29th, even though there is no Ireland-US rugby game. For more information about the Hall of Fame event, go to usrugbyfoundation.org/Hall of Fame for more information and registration form. Until next time, everyone, stay safe.